A lot of people, I feel, look to the outdoors for an escape. And for me, it's connection, it's community. I go to find the people.
Welcome to Superpower with Kristine Milkovich, the podcast where we help you unleash your inner hero. Whether you're a change maker, a trailblazer, or just looking to level up, this is the space to uncover your unique superpower and transform it into unstoppable momentum. Join me as we dive deep with inspiring guests, sharing their game-changing insights, empowering us all to be the hero of our own stories. Get ready to embrace your deepest purpose, own your power, and change the world one bold move at a time. Conservation, storytelling, and the kind of grit that can only be earned on the water. This guest in this episode is a fly fishing extraordinaire guide, Yeti and Patagonia ambassador, documentary filmmaker, and a fierce advocate for all the wild places. You are going to love hearing all of the superpowers this guest has. Today is such an exciting day. There has actually been a couple rebookings because I had this zany idea that I could keep on track while I was in Europe on much needed vacation a few weeks back. So I am so grateful for this next guest. For one, she rescheduled with me. Thank you. Number two, I'm a huge fangirl and you're about to figure out why in a few capacities, but we have got a extraordinaire fly fishing guide, a documentary filmmaker, a land preservation activist and advocate, and so many other things. So let's just get to it in the studio here. Please help me welcome Hilary Hutcheson to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Hilary, so much. I'm just going to blurp it out here. You worked all day today. Like you literally just got off the river and took care of some humans that called on you for your experience and your knowledge and your brand. So thank you. Thank you. I lead every episode with that. I know you could be doing 5 million other things. So we're so grateful you're here.
No problem.
But that being said, for the show, there's the intention is everyday people doing really freaking extraordinary, rad, cool things. And I know you're not an everyday, I mean, you're doing things that are mind blowing. Like it's crazy. I just restudied. I'm like, okay, I've learned a lot about Hilary. I've been to her shop. I know my wife is literally on a plane right now. You can't make this stuff up. No
Right.
joke for our listeners. My wife is on an airplane. Well, she's probably off of it now, but was 2 hours ago, flying to Montana to have Hilary guide and coach and lead her on a
Right.
fishing trip. So how cool is that? We actually didn't plan this, but that's random.
It's very cool. I can't wait. She is literally one of my favorite people to be on the river with
Oh,
because she loves it so much. Like she's swimming. She's what I call the chairman of the Soggy Cookie Club because when she gets so excited, we're eating our lunch and she's got the chocolate chip cookie and then there's a fish and next thing this chocolate chip cookie is like in the river, like down in the bottom of the boat. Yeah, she gets pretty excited.
I love that. That sounds about right. Yeah. Never a
It's fun.
dull moment. But I know truly that's how I learned of you, Hilary. I'm going to give props and respect where props are due is through my wife, Chris, and of course, our friends, the Michelles, who were on
Yes.
my show when I first started. They were episode 2,
Oh, okay.
the great Michelles that own bacon and eggs and love fishing. So here we are, full circle moment
Mhm.
and a gift to me. But that all being said, Hilary, for those of us, including myself, I'm going to learn a ton in these next 40 minutes, but folks that tune in to Superpower and have never fished or have never been to Montana or haven't gone to your amazing sites or seen your films, take us kind of back. What was the first time in your life knowing, because I read it online, you share it in your reels, in your videos, you're from Montana, right? I mean, you are a
Mhm.
Montana woman, you were a Montana girl, but tell us, what was that first experience on the river or the first experience catching your first fish? And who
Yeah.
guided you to that? Like, was it just part of your
Right.
family?
Well, I'm glad that you started with saying your first experience on the river because for me it was river before fish. So
Ah,
I didn't ever like seek out being an angler. but I really sought after being a river person. And I
Okay.
didn't even, it wasn't something I aspired to. It was just something that we're in this place with these rivers, and it was just a place that I was. And so that's it, it kind of
Mm.
became me, and it was a part of me really at an early age. So we've got all of these
Wow.
wild rivers. And when I say wild rivers, I really mean it. They're undammed rivers, they're freestone rivers, and they are the headwaters to the Pacific Ocean. So it's this wild place with
Mm.
these really dynamic waterways. And I felt that at a very early age, growing up here in West Glacier, just being surrounded by so much water. And then in Columbia Falls, the town just outside of West Glacier, which is the closer municipality to the national park, Glacier National Park. And so all my friends growing up were all surrounded by these rivers. And
Mm.
so going on the river was something that, we just did for fun. You would go in
Mm.
anything that floated. And my parents were very keen on it being an actual inflatable kayak that, they felt like was safer than like a, inner tube or something.
Right, right.
So I started paddling at an early age, and that was just what we did for fun as kids, is go to the river, be on the river. And we were always, pretty safe, because if your parents are going to let you go be at large here, you shouldn't die or else you won't be able to do it. You probably shouldn't end up in the hospital because then they won't let you do it. You probably shouldn't get in trouble because then they won't let you do it.
You were strategic, Hilary.
Yes, right. So flying under the radar, I think, was the strategy,
Mm.
to be able to be one of these at-large kids and being on the river. And it was just the freedom
Wow.
of being on the river. So this is many years before we got our driver's licenses. So I remember, like, kids who lived in cities, for example, or places not near the river, they just couldn't wait to leave. They couldn't wait for some sort of freedom, like to drive or to just get out of there. But I think because we had this freedom to roam, we were really content and just very happy to be there. And most kids, like, ended up getting jobs in high school and college, in the outdoor industry because of that,
Mm.
because we were just good at it by nature. No pun
Literally.
intended, but just
Yeah.
by being in this geography. And so, nobody really, I would say, guided me into it. I would say it
Mm.
was the village. It was all the community. It was all of my friends and their families, and somebody's always going to the river. And my parents were really great outdoors people. They still are, and they were into climbing and backpacking, mountaineering,
Mm.
and less about rivers. But that was because they grew up among mountains, Mount Rainier and in Northern California. And so that was their geography. And so they were like mountain people.
Yeah.
And since I'm here, we have mountains too, but I was, in the valleys are the rivers,
That's right.
and that was my highway. So yeah, so it wasn't, I don't think, at an early age that any one person or people, drove me really to the rivers. It was just kind of by being here and being raised in a river
Mm.
community by parents who value
Yeah.
the outdoors in
Yeah.
general. And then I had buddies who fly fished, some of my, closest friends in junior high were fly fishing. And if I wanted to hang out with them, then that's kind of like what they were doing. And they weren't doing it like people fly fish now, where you like really go, like, take a class or get into a club or a group or, whatever. They just, grandpa had a fly rod or something, and they were just going out there for fun, floating
Right.
around in the kayaks and catching fish. And then I
Wow.
started working at Glacier Raft Company as a barn boy, which is like cleaning up the warehouse and backing trailers and washing life jackets and that kind of stuff. And then babysitting the owner's kids as a nanny for the raft company. And then started guiding in high school. And then the movie came out. And the movie, we just call here in Montana, we just call the movie A River Runs Through It. We just call it the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. The movie.
And that just kind of, you just watch, you know, Brad Pitt change everything for a lot of people. Suddenly everybody wanted to fly fish, and they all just started showing up at the raft company
Wow.
wanting to fly fish. And so some of us who were pretty young became some of the first fly fishing guides in the area.
Wow. Ah, that makes so much sense. You used a couple words that really struck me as, community, and if I wanted to kind of hang out and be with these people, that's what everybody was doing, right? Like you were so immersed in it. It was just probably so natural as far as the beginning phases, like being just in river culture. And I love that distinction between
Mhm.
like mountain and river.
Mhm.
That connected to me because I grew up in Southern California and was around a lot of mountains. I love living here in Seattle and being around a lot of mountains, but you're right. That's a really good clear distinction. So knowing that nobody really like I don't want to say pushed you, but it was just sort of
Mhm.
immersive. You were around it. It was where you grew up. You were eating, breathing, drinking, seeing it.
Mhm.
So I do know a little bit because I've read up on you a bit more and even hearing you talk at some of the debuts of your amazing film, which we'll get to that in a minute. So your career wasn't always in this lane though, right? I know
No.
again, nerves, no pressure. I'm literally speaking to a journalist, a past newscaster. So thank you for that. But for those listening that maybe don't know a little bit about that arc or that other lane that you were
Mhm.
in, how did that all come together? And then how did you come back to the river and fly fishing? If you could educate us on
Right.
that.
Yeah. Well, my parents were both scientists, and somehow I just did not get that gene for math and sciences. I was just not a STEM girl. I was as a kid, a writer, and I loved to write poetry and read a ton. I was a big bookworm and really verbal and liked to talk a lot. And so um I went into journalism, and that was my degree at the University of Montana.
Okay.
And right in college and then out of college, I became a newscaster. I was a weekday field reporter at KPTV in Portland, Oregon, and then a weekend news anchor and a weekday fill in news anchor. And I was a embedded meth reporter. I, I did tons of meth coverage.
Wow.
I learned how to make meth. I learned everything about the meth culture. I was in countless meth houses, and I was around when meth houses were blowing up and when they were arresting people and when people came back to squat in their condemned houses after getting out of jail. I mean, it was a wild time
Wow.
being a news reporter during like the big meth epidemic in Portland. And that was the whole goal. Was at the time the governor was trying to get pseudoephedrine taken off the
Mm,
shelves, the main ingredient for meth. So he created a methamphetamine task force to try to learn as much as he could about the meth epidemic. And so I was on that task force as a reporter to gather information to try to get pseudoephedrine taken off the shelves. So that's a big arc
yeah,
away from
no kidding. Slightly
our news
slightly
from
different lane.
yeah. Yeah, it's just downriver from here. It's
I
perfect.
love that.
Um,
That was charming.
yeah, I did too. I loved it a lot. But that was right out of college, using my journalism degree there. And then during that time, I also started hosting a television show about fly fishing and really missed it. I mean, I was still fishing and I would go home and I think, I'd let my guide's license expire and then I got it back and then I would, do the trout TV show and let my guide's license expire again. And then I would, have some old clients who would want to fish again. And so then I would say, okay, maybe I'll do it again. So then I started working in public relations
Mm,
in Portland and then brought that back to Montana and worked in public relations in the outdoor industry and
interesting.
ski industry and fly fishing. And then I just, really loved the writing. I love the PR stuff. I love the journalism angle, but just had such a hard time being inside.
Mm,
And I couldn't do it
yeah.
anymore being inside behind a desk. And so, yeah, so I went back to full-time guiding, I think in like 2013
Okay.
or something. So, yeah.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
knew, like, I mean, outside with Hillary, like, it's your IG handle. Come on, right? It's part of your brand.
Yeah, well, the PR agency that I owned, the marketing agency was called Outside Media.
Ah,
That was the
okay. Yeah,
yeah.
good play on words, makes a lot of sense. So you just went for it. You just knew. It sounds like I mean, I feel your passion, your energy. It's very self-evident in your messaging, and we're gonna get to some of your activism and your other work, but it just felt like this is it. This is right. I gotta get back outside and do this.
Yeah, I felt like getting back outside wasn't getting away from
Right.
things. It was bringing me into the things that I felt like that were really important.
Mhm.
So a lot of people I feel look to the outdoors for an escape.
Mm,
And for me, it's connection. It's community, like we talked about before. And my experience with fly fishing, my experience with the river, in my opinion, is different from what a lot of people might think or from what a lot of other people's experience is, and that is that feel that a lot of people think it's about solitude and getting away and centering yourself and being quiet in
Mm,
nature. But for me, it's the high stoke, it's like the adrenaline, it's the in between moments, at kind of sitting on the tailgate, getting geared up, or like a dawn patrol, early morning missions, and beers
yeah.
afterwards with your friends, and all of the things that can go wrong at boat ramps, and
Totally.
just like all of the shenanigans for sure, but it's the grit
Yeah.
and the energy and the stoke and just the fun,
Mm,
and I want to share that with people, and I feel like that's where I find community
mm,
is in the outdoors, specifically at the river. And so I'm not dissing anybody who says that their experience in fly fishing is the solitude and the quiet
sure.
and getting away
Sure.
from everybody. It's just not my experience. I
Mhm.
go to find the people, and I for me, it's where the solutions are found.
Ah, love that.
It's, if we're ever going to solve the world's
Mm,
problems, or certainly if we're going to save the planet, to me, I need to be immersed in it in order to see it, feel it, taste it, smell it, and hopefully do
mhm.
something about it.
Mm. It lights you up. It's that energy upper, like you're saying, or some
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
maybe where it's not their life's work or their calling or their
Mhm.
passion, they're really using it as more of like a way to sedate. And again, all due respect, that's not bad. If they're like
Right.
hitting the streets in Manhattan 60 hours a week and in traffic, then maybe going out on the river and being with you
Right.
is that calming effect. But for you,
Right.
your calling is it actually brings you up. It goes higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool
And
distinction.
and I feel like part of that is helping other people get there.
Mhm.
One of the guides I work with said when we were talking in the springtime before the season about goals and some of the things that the guides were looking forward to for the season, and talking about kind of their biggest like guide pro tip.
Mm.
One of the guides said, let all of your clients get their big fish. And I kind of was like, oh, we're not really all about big fish here, buddy. What are you talking about? And he's like, no, no, no. Their big fish might be a bird. Their
Mm.
big fish might be a wildflower or an encased caddis fly, or maybe like, being quiet and hearing things that they hadn't heard before. Or maybe it's just watching the water.
Mm.
Whatever it is that they are really going to connect with during that trip, let them have it
Mm.
instead of forcing them into some sort of experience, which for guides sometimes can be like you really want them to get that big fish or lots of fish.
Yeah.
And sometimes their big fish isn't a fish at all.
That's
And so we shouldn't be forcing them into that big fish. And so I try to think about that for anybody's outdoor experiences. It's going to be a little different for everybody. And so I try not to, be on a soapbox and force people into seeing it my way out there.
that right there is a drop the mic life lesson moment for anybody that's providing an immersive experience for someone, right? Whatever your commodity is, insert. But what a wonderful way of really storytelling is whatever that person's jam is, and you're the guide and they've called on you, gone to your website, booked, paid the money, done all the things to entrust the experience with you and your tenure. I love that. Like let them find that moment. Like let them have that journey. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
I'm stealing that.
Although sometimes their big fish is, like, venting about,
Their
something
spouse or their
traumatic
job or
or yeah, their ex
yeah.
or whatever, and I'm there for it too.
Oh
Um,
my god, girl, I'm like, the coffee table books you could write don't even
oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I think my career yields that. I'm like, "Oh, man,
Mhm.
Hilary must have some stories in the vault."
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
That's a whole 'nother podcast. That's like a 2-hour one.
totally. The river is the water cooler.
Yeah, right, no kidding. Cocktails, even if they're not there, everybody's like my one of my good friends goes, "Oh, girl, you're drinking and writing bad checks." I think that's just the funniest line ever. I say it all the time. I'm like,
Right.
"Okay, I got you. I'll slow my roll." How do you feel like you just touched on it a little bit, so it's a specific question though. How do you feel like guiding specifically has shaped you? You
Mhm.
as a woman, as a partner, a mother, how has it just because really you're letting us know it's sort of the river and this lifestyle has reared you. I mean, I know you had parents and
Mhm.
I had the great honor of meeting your mother at one of the film debuts, but how would you answer that? How has it really
Yeah,
grown up Hilary and made you into the
right.
woman you are today?
Well, I've never thought that I was a teacher or any kind of an educator. Growing up, I didn't ever want to be a teacher just because I didn't feel like I was good at it. I couldn't really articulate to students something in a patterned way that could be helpful. I knew the teachers that I liked to learn from were just really creative, and I don't have any original content, and that is the God's honest truth. So I'm not a educator, but I am a reporter. And
Mm,
so for me as a guide, I feel like what I'm good at is gathering the facts and the information about what's happening out there and helping people. I'll disseminate it for them. I'll
mhm,
I'll bring that to the people on my boat. And so I'm able to help them learn about ecology and entomology and hydrology and like all of these cool things that are happening out there here at the crown of the continent,
mm,
as well as the skills on how to do this cool thing that is very unique. It's whitewater fly fishing and in a very dynamic river in a place that, they maybe have never seen before. And, hopefully they'll want to come back and experience again. But it's this unique thing. And people are like, oh, you must be a good teacher to be a guide. And I feel like, well, no, there's a lot of other people out there who are good teachers, and I've just cherry picked from them and gathered, all of their good
yeah,
information and really, filtered the facts and help other people get it.
mm,
So less of a teacher and I think more of a reporter, just kind of helping people. And then also like I love adventure, and I think part of me, I still feel like a kid, like, come on, let's go. Like,
yeah,
like I feel like, come on, guys, let's
yeah,
check this out,
totally.
So like when I go on the river with people, I'm very much like in the morning, just so excited to show
Oh
them.
my
And I still
gosh.
feel like that. So in terms of the
Mm,
growth, for me, it is who's on my boat and gathering information from them, whether it's different life experiences that
mhm,
are very different from my own, different family structures, different friend and village dynamics. The fly fishing industry is not as diverse as
mm,
it should be. It doesn't reflect America as clearly as I think that it should. And I'm really keen on trying to move it closer to that. And a big part of that is making sure that everybody's stories are welcome on my boat and everybody's
mm,
experiences are welcome on my boat. And I just really love to gather from them, different ways that maybe I can make better decisions
mm.
or I can get some parenting tips or, some
Yeah.
wifey
Yeah.
tips or cooking tips or just things that I don't necessarily think that I'm good at. And that's where I find it. Like literally like any of the skills that suddenly I've gotten as an adult have been because there's somebody who I've met out there who I didn't expect to meet
Mm,
who have opened that door for me. So there's been tons of growth, but it's all come from the people who are on my boat.
oh.
It hasn't come just from book. Like people are always asking me about fishing books and articles and all this kind of stuff. And like, even though I love to read and I do read it all, I think that it comes from the interpersonal communications that I find out around the river.
Yeah. Oh, that just gave me chills. I had this thought while I was listening to you and leaning in that, that old saying, I think we've all heard it at these adult ages and careers of whatever we're doing is like, well, like who's Christine at work and like who's Christine at home and
Right.
the whole spoon-fed crap that we've all been fed, particularly women. Work-life balance. Nothing makes me want to scratch someone's eyes out
Right.
faster, deeper, and more bloody than actually saying that.
Same.
Like, I hate it.
Same.
And you just kind of put a pin in it. You just kind of went there is that you're present and yes it's your career and yes it's your livelihood and yes it's how you put food on the table and all the other things and all your passion and artistry, but you're just in the boat being present to the stories and the people and the lessons, and
Hmm.
that to me, that's a career. Like, to me, that's the difference between a
Hmm.
job and a career. You're not just
Hmm.
like clock in, clock out. And no disrespect to that. It's just more that I love the way you shared that because it really means
Hmm.
you're actually being present to not only
Yep.
who you're serving, i.e., your client, but your own journey, your own growth. That's so
Right.
rad.
Yeah, it's helped me a lot because I think it's taught me way more patience than I would have had if I didn't become a guide. and a lot more opportunity to be present or requirement to be present
Mm.
because it's different people every single day with different experiences. So, my goal is that I want them to say this is the best day I've ever had in my life when
Yeah.
they leave the boat. And they're not going to have that if they can't be who they are on the boat. And I think when I was young, I was like kind of trying to force them into this day. Like, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to catch the fish, and here's how it's going to go, and not letting them have their big fish, which maybe was they really want to run some whitewater, or they really want to like bask in the sun, or maybe even read a book in the back of the boat, or whatever it is, that I wasn't keying in
Mm.
to at all to them, like to the
Mm.
people who were on the boat. I was just forcing them into this curated thing that I said was the best way.
Mm.
This is the way. And so that's even true for a lot of fishing skills. Like, I think sometimes people are expecting that I know the way in fly fishing, but really multiple times this summer people get on my boat and they're showing me things that I'm like, duh, that's way better than what I've been doing. And just I'm picking stuff up from them,
Yeah.
and and that's kind of what's making me better.
Wow.
So I think it's my one little boat's kind of as much of a melting pot as I can make it
Yeah.
right now in terms of the different kinds of people and the information they bring about fishing and the world. But it definitely is not. It's going to take the rest of my life to try to grow it into an actual melting pot.
Well, I mean, thank you. I will thank you personally. And I've not been in your boat yet, but I will do that. I will do that. I've been to Larry's Fly Shop, but I will.
And you've been in both at the same time on the same river. You went whitewater rafting
I
when we were
did.
fly
I
fishing,
did.
and
I
so I
did.
knew you
I
were out
did. There's
there.
still that energetic connection, even though I have not
Yeah.
been in your boat, but that is coming. It will happen. So, Hillary, that being said, in your mind, what is one of it could be the toughest day, the most exciting, the most dangerous, like you insert, but what is a day on the river where you're just
Mhm.
like, oh my God, I got to tell you this story? I mean, just even if it's the Cliff Notes, like, is there
Oh,
just one that's just so weird, wacky, cool, intense, something happened?
yeah.
I mean, God forbid someone had a heart attack. I mean, whatever. It could be
Oh,
this
yeah.
joyous moment, or it could be like, "Oh my god, I was scared out of my mind." Like, what is that moment that comes to you when I ask you that?
Oh, I mean, there are so many, but I wake up in the morning ready for that
For
thing to
that,
happen
yeah.
that day. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could be there's really simple things like I just came off of an overnight and there's a trip leader. So the trip leader is the gear boater and they row all the overnight camping equipment down the river. And so the camp is set up when my boat with my fishing
Yeah.
anglers shows up at the river. And so like we put on at the same time, but that gear boater goes down first and then we show up at camp, and everything's all set up for us and it's great. And it can go swimmingly or it can go really sideways, and I just got off of one that went absolutely perfect. And then we went back to the bar and everything was cleaned up, and I had taken some pictures of another camp that I was going to suggest to one of the river managers might be a good one to camp at sometime. And I said, oh, this one camp is a little overgrown or something. We might try this one. I said to the river manager, and he's like, yeah, I know, I was there. And I go, what do you mean you were there? And he said, oh yeah, the trip leader like didn't have the right tent poles, so I hiked in and brought the right tent poles. But she didn't tell me because she didn't want me to know that she had the wrong
Whoops.
tent poles.
Oops.
Yeah, and so like some of the things, my point about telling that
Yeah.
story that is this story about nothing is this like if you're that person, you're like, where are they going to sleep? The tent poles are not here. This isn't going to work. What are you going to do? And you just have to be ready to like figure it out. And sometimes it's like hiking out
Right.
and, trying to get a signal and get somebody to, try to hike you back in some tent poles. And that happens. That kind of thing happens a fair amount. We had last week an overnight where they just missed the camp and had to
Oops.
go another like 14 miles to get to the next camp. We have had bears in camp, and my daughter was a trip leader and she came floating by my boat and she gave me the full double fingered flip off, because I had taken all of the bear spray, and she was in camp with the bear, and it took her 4 hours to break down. She had to throw rocks at this bear and then grab a cooler and put it in the boat and then run back and throw a rock at a bear and then grab the tents and go to the cooler because I had taken all the bear spray on accident.
Mom.
I know. My clients were horrified that this child was flipping them off as she's rowing by, but then when she yelled, "You took all the effing bear spray," then they were like, "How could you?"
Oh my God, that
That's
is
terrible.
the
So it's
cutest.
kind of constant, like this constant flow of just having to prepare and then prepare again and adjust and try to be as ready and as dialed as possible. But
Mhm.
being ready and dialed also means being ready and dialed for the next
Yeah.
thing. And I mean, it's so often is one thing after
Oh,
another. You're just kind of ready for all of it.
yeah. I mean, you literally are navigating the wild. You're
Yeah.
navigating humans, which we know that that's never easy. And then all the tools and the skills. And oh man, I love that. What is the furthest distance someone has flown to
Mm.
guide with Hillary?
Oh gosh, good question. I've had people come from as far south in the country as you can get, but I've also had people come from all the other side of the
Yeah.
world. And then sometimes people come and they'll come in June and they want to know what July is like, and then they want to know what August is like, and they want to know what September is like. And so they'll just like
Wow.
keep coming back. Yeah. And I have people coming back after they've moved around the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're
So
Glacier National Park,
cool.
so we get Europeans and
Yeah.
Asians and people, yeah,
All over the
from
world.
everywhere. So
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
the
I don't know where the farthest is though. That's a good question.
yeah.
I'll
We'll
find
have
out.
podcasts too. We'll put that
Yeah.
on the agenda.
Good.
Well, I mean, I just can imagine given your reputation, your tenure, your skill that, folks come from all over the world because of that, not only living in beautiful Montana, but yeah. So we'll circle back on that one on the next episode. But
Okay.
I am gonna get a little bit more political. I know that you are built for it because you live it, you work it, you are missional, and your heart's there. So I was watching some of your reels today and slightly talked to you and heard you talk about this at a couple of the film debuts, but I'm gonna use an actual term because it just makes me wanna burn this house down with anger. So, with your activism and your advocacy work for land preservation, for just, everything from waterways to the fish population, you used a term in one of your reels that really educated me, and it's land grab. The land
Mm,
grabs that are happening with the current administration and the current federal government, things that are happening with the government right now. So, you're gonna be much more skilled than I will, but I mean, I certainly am following the news, I'm watching the news, I'm having nervous breakdowns every 5 minutes about all kinds of things, and then eventually I have to go, "Oh, wait, I have this client to serve in front of me, or I have a podcast to do." So, Milkovich, you might wanna, like, check out for a second because you're losing it. So, tell me about your work. Tell me about your mission around that, and then how do you
mm.
balance not letting it make you absolutely
Right.
crazy?
Yeah.
That was a lot of
Well,
questions, sorry, I just wanted to
sure.
kinda
No, we'll start with the land grab. So I'm a product of public lands, federal public lands, very literally. I was conceived on Mount Rainier. Too much
love it.
information, but
That's
yeah,
romantic.
right. At base camp of Mount Rainier in a snowstorm.
Love it.
And then born at Crater Lake National Park and raised at Glacier National Park. So I was raised in this federal public lands home. And that value of our shared lands and the understanding that we were not the first people there, that these were originally stolen lands, that we now have extra responsibility to care for even if I didn't steal it. I have a responsibility to try to right some of those wrongs, and a big way of doing that is to take care of these
Mhm,
federal public lands. The best way to take care of those federal public lands is to keep them in public hands so
mhm,
that we can continue to share it and guard it together.
right.
And that is best done in the federal agency structure, because the land heist or land grab that we're hearing about now is the transfer of management from federal government to state governments. And state governments can't, or they change so often, and there may be different motivations state to state for how they want to manage those lands or what they want to do with those lands, which cuts off connectivity
Mm.
where we need really these connected spaces that aren't drawn like state lines,
Right.
but that are migratory corridors where wild rivers run through, where we have some connected spaces. And national parks are really uniquely suited to try to keep those intact ecosystems as they should be.
Mm.
So, state land grabs, when the states, you know, try to take them over, a lot of times they're saying, well, it's because it's what's best for our state. And that may be true.
Mm.
You may be able to make some money for your state, but that would be by selling it to the highest bidder.
Mm.
And perhaps that highest bidder cares about extraction. And that extraction is not going to last into your children's lifetime.
Mm.
It's going to be short and sweet for a few people,
Mm.
real freaking sweet for a few people, but very sour for the rest of us who
Mm.
share it now. For people who hunt, people who fish, people who berry pick, people who horseback ride, people who trail run
Yeah.
and hike and share these lands in the different ways that they are suited to be shared.
Mm.
So you're really opening up the opportunity when you transfer federal lands to state and then privately held lands, that you're just locking everybody out, and that you don't know what's going to happen to those favorite hunting spots
Right.
because you don't have any say anymore.
Right.
And in a lot of these land grabs, it takes away, it's literally written in some of these bills, that it takes away the public's long given right to talk about how they would like those lands managed.
Mm.
The public is supposed to be able to weigh in.
Right.
And that's how the federal government has had it set up. But as soon as like you say it, okay, we don't want the federal government to do this anymore, then suddenly it's open to all of this wild and crazy opportunity for a few people to maybe make a ton of money in a short amount of time and wreak a lot of havoc
Mm.
and leave a really scary wake.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's the long
Yeah.
answer of my feelings when I talk about protecting public lands.
Mhm.
And that's not to say, and I really, really need to clarify, public lands are in many different agencies and many different structures and geographies, not just what we see as the Department of the Interior and Department of
Right.
Agriculture, but there are some amazing public lands that are very local and open for folks within their
Yeah.
states.
Yeah.
So your state public land agencies should not be discounted. Those are really
Right.
important. Our state Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks is like really important to the state and should be valued. It's that when you start getting these millions of acres of federal land up for sale, that's when it gets really scary,
Right.
because that wasn't like it was Fish, Wildlife, and Parks saying, "Hey, we have a really good plan for your hunting grounds."
Right.
Like, there was something bigger going on
Yeah.
there. So,
Yeah.
there is really great state management in many, many states. I don't want to
Oh,
discount that at
for
all.
sure, and thank goodness, right? I mean, now more than ever, because you also used a term in one of your videos that really touched me, because it's a thing to remember in so many different capacities in life, certainly outdoor and wildlife and recreation. But, I'm on a couple equity inclusion fair housing boards in my industry, in my career. And this just really touched me. You said, the selling off of legacy. And
Mm,
again, as you respectfully anchored, living on borrowed land already, not being the first peoples, but in your work and in your voice, like how can you, Hilary, make a dent at it? It's always that thing of like we've got this one shot. It's like how can we, and certainly you have created a large stage and a large platform, and we'll get to some of the ambassador brands that you're with and so on. But it's just getting up every day and making a decision. How can I chip away at the problem? How can I be a voice for advocating, you know, that this is important? And that's what I'm hearing
mhm.
you say. This is important to
Yeah.
you.
Right. And I remember you had asked that as the second part of the question that you were asking just after the land grab too. And I was thinking about it while you were asking, and I was thinking, gosh, I don't think that I do necessarily think about what can I do? How can I chip away at this? How can I make it better? I think it's being out there. I
Mm.
think that I wake up and just go, let's go, like, let's go. Like me being out there apparently is something,
Mhm. Yeah,
you
it's
know.
a lot.
And I'm blessed with a lot of confidence and a lot of confidence in what I
Yeah,
do. Like and I feel
yeah.
like, okay, well, what I'm doing has to be good for somebody because I've had people tell me that it's working out for them, you
Mhm,
know? And so that might be from a policy standpoint,
mhm,
working with nonprofits. It might be just kind of trying to share my voice, which is not just my voice, but as a delegate
mhm.
for the
Yeah.
people who are here in the outdoors in Washington. When I try to share their voice or kind of go do that reporting, like I said,
Mhm,
like try to be the reporter
mhm.
for the people. It feels like that is what I can offer.
Yeah,
I have to remind myself I don't have a lot of money. I actually don't have, like I said, a lot of original content or other skills or brain power of my own. Like I'm not that smart. I'm not that, dialed in just as myself. But when I like kind of try to pull that community in, then I am confident enough to try to take some of those things forward. And I think that if I were to wake up in the morning and say, what can I do to chip away? Then it would be, okay, let's still try to learn and bring those things forward to where they might matter.
yeah.
Where can I, people say, oh, they want a seat at the table or whatever. I look at the tables and go, is there anything that I can bring to that to help them?
Mm,
I don't need a seat at the table for me,
mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, but what do I have that I've learned from other people
Mhm,
that might be able to push forward some sort of progress
mhm,
in climate action or in the public lands fight or in kind of like local advocacy?
mhm,
And so I try to think about that
mhm.
and as opposed to just like randomly, what can I do?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
I'm just I just have to go out
You
there.
just
I have to go out there and just kind of keep
yeah,
on.
leading by example. I mean, just living your life and leading by example is to me, that's a huge ripple effect that and that
Yeah,
that
which
it
is carrying on the example of others.
mhm. It's in that boat, all those good juicy bits.
Yeah.
Oh, Tanaka better be on good behavior tomorrow. I'm gonna give her a little FaceTime tonight.
Yay.
So, as we're starting to narrow down, there are 2 key topics I do not wanna miss because 'cause they're so important and so amazing, but, given that you do have a PR communications background and your original education is in communication and being able to bring that to this platform and this career and this life that you're building, tell our audience how you became brand ambassador. I know that
Oh,
you've made a wonderful film that I've seen 3 times and it's so good and I'm gonna keep watching it because there's so many lessons, which I want you to talk about that in a minute. But with Yeti and Patagonia and like tell us a little bit about how does someone in a sport, which is what
hmm.
you're in, and being great at your career and your skill, like do they reach out and say, Hilary, let's talk about partnering up? Or did you sort of approach them and say, hey, like I've got some things to the earlier conversation. What can I share with what I'm learning out here in Montana or what I'm doing? So tell us about
Mhm.
that. I'm just so curious. I'm
Yeah.
so nerdy curious.
Right. Yeah, no, same. Like I am so curious about what influencers are and
I
all
know,
that.
right?
Too old to understand any of that, but I've never approached a brand and I've been with the brands that I'm with, for a really long time. And the reason that I am with them is my parents, I mentioned we don't have a lot of money, but they really wanted us to have the best stuff in the outdoors.
Mm,
So, I mean, I always had a metal bike. That was really important to get like the metal
love
Schwinn
that.
because, the kids with the plastic bikes were having to get like, the bikes would be trash and
Yeah.
they'd go in the landfill. They'd have to get another bike because they're just breaking. And so we always had like good gear, like
Mm,
good skis. Like I still have my mountain bike from junior high and my skis and like snowshoes and snowboard and like all of our outdoor equipment. My mom still has her mountaineering jacket that she would climb Mount Rainier in, and their backpacks and heirloom stuff that was just made really well.
Wow.
And so the brands that I am lucky enough to fish with are those kinds of
Yeah.
brands that really are the top shelf, well made stuff.
Durable.
Yeah, durable, and I also like being a small, dark female kid
Mm,
guiding, I was like, I cannot give anybody any ammunition to not fish with me, like having a shitty rod or like gear that's just gonna break in the field.
mm,
I can't let my eyes go bad, so I need to have really good polarized sunglasses,
yeah.
I can't like give anybody any ammunition to be like, "Oh, she wasn't that good. Her gear wasn't,
Mhm.
this broke or that broke," or like she had crappy whatever.
Yeah.
And so I thought that at a young age, I definitely need to go out there with things that won't fail me in the field
Yeah.
so I can at least cross that
Yeah.
off of the
Yeah.
list,
Yeah.
and if they don't want to fish with me, then it's going to be on merit because I'm not good at this,
Wow.
not because my gear failed.
Yeah.
So that was when I was in high school,
Okay.
and so I was definitely like Patagonia head to toe then because it was what my parents who are mountaineers,
Yeah.
invested in, and they still have their same stuff. So,
Amazing.
I mean, that was really important. So yeah, it was like I think they kind of get wind of that kind of stuff
Sure.
because it is a small
It's a brand
industry and
story. I mean, that in and of
yeah,
itself about your parents. Yeah.
yeah, the same people out there and like they kind of want to be a part of us out
Sure.
there just like, we need them too. So it's part of the
Nice
village.
partnership. Yeah, that makes sense,
Yeah,
Hilary.
it's definitely a partnership and for people who are curious about what brand ambassadors do, I think it's really important that it might not be what you think. We're like way more involved in the brand and products and storytelling and culture
Mhm.
within the brand than I think people think.
Yeah.
People a lot of times I think that the brand makes something and then they send it to us to test and we give them feedback. That's a thing that happens, but that's just product testing.
Right.
That's just Tuesday. Like
Mhm.
that's not a real thing. We actually are building products from the ground up. And that would be like pie in the sky on site meetings with designers and developers to talk about solutions and to make sure that we're making that heirloom product that won't go away
Right.
that is really going to be there and trying to advance technology. And so we're working with product designers and developers at the very earliest stages. Like a lot of times this gear has come from my coworkers or my colleagues on ambassador teams. They're thinking this kind of stuff up. Like I remember when the first Yeti Go box came out, Conrad Anker was working on developing at the same time for climbers and needing to put like his gear in there at the same time I was working on it to put fishing gear in like a over engineered tackle box, and we kind of had to work together with deciding how this thing was going to work for multi pursuits. And that was really cool to be able just to kind of come up with what did anglers want and then to know climbers are coming up what climbers need.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing is that working at a ground up design and
Yeah.
development. And then another thing is and probably and definitely the most important thing is the conservation.
Mm.
And that's because no offense to the people who are working in the offices, but you got to be in the field in order to see the nuances of what's happening to the river. You can't just read the white
Mm-mm.
papers. You can't just like read the news and get the reports or go out on a media trip once a year or something like that. You've got to be out there. And so these brands who I get to fish with are using their ambassadors, as the team in the
Mm.
field to be able to like I said before, see, taste, smell,
Yeah.
and really feel all of these little intricate changes that are
Yeah.
happening in the ecosystem and what that means for fishing and what that means for the resource, what that means for tomorrow's
Mhm.
fish, and what can we do about it. And so our voices are very, I think, appreciated. I feel very
Yeah.
appreciated by the
That's
brands
great.
when I talk about what's going on out there. And that's a really, it feels very high level because otherwise they could be hiring some sort of like consultant or something, and I'm like, I'm out there every day
Yes.
let's talk about this,
Yes.
or and it might be that something isn't as much of a problem as they anticipated.
Right.
Like, it might be that actually, like, this is what I'm seeing,
Yeah.
and let's talk to scientists about that, you
Yeah.
know? Um, so I think that is a really important piece. And then the other is building
Mm,
community. And that's another thing. You don't want the brand to just be a mouthpiece and tell people how to think and feel and act and wear what to wear.
yeah.
It's really needs to be reflective of the community. And so the ambassadors are the ones who are out there in those outdoor epicenters. And the epicenter might be a backcountry.
Yeah.
The epicenter doesn't need to be where all the people are. It's where they do have some influence, where they can kind of talk with people at the same level, because we're all out there.
Mm,
We're all anglers in our own way. And it might be urban fishing, it might be backcountry fishing, it might be that you only go 4 times a year, it might be that you never go, you're just aspiring to it and you've got big plans for retirement, but it might be that you're out there every single day like me.
yeah.
So I think that's really a little bit more of the ambassador view. It's not just like wear this stuff and get paid,
Yeah, yeah, it's not
to
just
get
like a
respect.
TikTok moment. This is real,
Yeah,
to your point, culture, data collecting, beta testing. I mean, those are real things that every company needs to
yeah.
concern themselves with. I
Yeah, and
love
it's real
that.
work. I
Yeah,
mean, it takes
yeah,
time, and I think, like, you've got to be working in it full time in order to help the brands do their work.
right.
It can't be that this is just a hobby. So
Yeah,
that's my opinion
yeah.
about ambassadors. It can't be that, "Ooh, I like to fish." You know?
Exactly.
It's like you have to be immersed in it in order to help the brand.
100%. It's that old, like, authenticity thing, like, with any brand or any pitch or, with your background. It's like if someone's talking about it and they're not living it, somebody's gonna smell that little rat out, right? Long
Yeah.
before they're
Well,
on
they
screen.
do. Yeah, no, they people call it out all the time,
Yeah.
and we see that in the fly fishing industry for sure. And I feel so bad for the people who are just like all they wanted to do was get a free pair of sunglasses or
Right.
something, and now they're like fully canceled or whatever. I'm like,
The celebrity moment backfired, sorry.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
totally. No, thank you. That was such a comprehensive, very, very, clear outline, just hearing a little bit about it. Oh god, okay. Okay, we're going there. So, Tengu Club, this
Yay.
incredible documentary film that co-created and put together. There are so many life lessons. I'm going to give you the mic. I just want to say for the listeners, I've seen it 3 times. I've sent it to 8 million people that I love and adore and think need to see it and hear it. I'll personalize it for a second. My spouse, my wife, Chris, is Japanese American, grew up in a very rural part of Oregon. And some of this lessons and things that you talked about in your film, Hilary, I have, in the 12 years I've been so grateful to be in her life, have heard her kind of say some similar things. And you even said it
Mhm.
earlier, like, I was the brown kid out on the water with the dark hair, and I didn't maybe quite look like everybody. So tell us a little bit about the film, how it was
Mhm.
conceived, and what that all meant for you.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for caring about it and
Love
for
it.
being there. I think first I just want to say that you mentioned you've seen it 3 times, but the cool thing is you've been there in person. I've shown it 3 times in Seattle and you've been there every time. And the reason I think that's cool is not just because it's so great to have you there, but also that is, I think, the most special way to watch this
Mm,
thing is with the community. And you just get the and I realize that a lot of people may have been sitting on their toilet watching it on their phone, but for those people who went and saw it on the big screen together with other people, I mean, when you can hear people take their breath in or let it out, or just the kind of audible kind of
yes.
reactions to different parts of the drama of it, or the humor, or the sadness, or just
Yeah.
like the atrocities. When I watch it with a group in a theater, that's where I'm like, okay, this is how we process history in a way that will move us forward. And so to
Mm,
what is it about? It's different from what I set out to make. The film I set out to make was to be a report essentially about this cool fishing club in Seattle called the Tengu Club, and it's the longest running salmon fishing club on the West Coast, and made up of Japanese Americans who kind of restarted a Japanese American fishing club post internment. So 3 days after they got out of internment camps,
Mm.
120,000 American citizens and Japanese immigrants were, interned. 120,000 mostly Japanese or American
Mm.
citizens of Japanese descent were put in concentration camps in America. And just 3 days after getting out, went back fishing. And so I just really keyed in on like that, like what drives you to go back fishing again. And I wanted to follow that. My relative had written this awesome book about the club. And I wanted to do a film version of that
Mm.
book. But as we were filming it, I started to notice that the Japanese Americans who I was interviewing really like had the same story, which is that they didn't really talk about it and their kids didn't talk about it. They didn't pass on a lot of Japanese culture. And that was because of assimilation. And I started digging into why we assimilate and whether it's to protect our families, whether it's to live a comfortable life, whether it's, to just try to shigatanai, which is that term that just means move forward and don't look back.
Yeah.
So my reaction to learning about the atrocities and also the inspiration that I found in a lot of these anglers was what my co-director, who is really the director, I mean, he is amazing, Britt, started to see. And so
Mm.
he started to record that. So we ended up kind of telling the story of the Tengu Club kind of through my discovery.
Yeah.
And the reason it's a discovery is because my family, like many of those other Japanese American families, didn't talk about internment.
Right.
They didn't even really talk about Japanese culture in in my house for sure, but even in my mom's family's
Right.
house because they're American born
Yeah.
citizens, amplify in baseball. And that's we live in the US and we're gonna be patriots, really.
Yeah.
And they really were. They were the greatest generation. They were, the 442nd and the 100th Infantry, the still most decorated military personnel in all of history to this day. And that's what they did for America. So it's in a lot of ways a military film because it really talks about that
Yeah.
patriotism and the way they pulled themselves up by their
Yeah.
bootstraps. But it made me question, like, well, gosh, they barely had boots. They got their boots
Yeah.
taken away. Like,
Yeah. And their
so
farms
it,
and their, jewelry and
right.
yeah.
And when we talk about generational trauma, it's like all of those Japanese Americans who lost their strawberry farms out, near Elliott
Oh,
Bay in
yeah.
Seattle. Where would those kids have been had they been able to have that generational wealth
Exactly.
instead of the generational trauma, from losing everything? And the trauma really was there because so many families, when they lost everything, they broke apart,
That's right.
you know.
Yeah.
And it's this breaking apart of these really important family and community structures that I feel. And I just really, I think for me, the discovery of these feelings and where they're coming from, and just kind of like trying to dig into the identity crisis that I've experienced my whole life or just recognize it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I walked around as a kid like with an identity
Sure.
crisis. I, made fun of myself the way everybody else made fun of me. But as an adult, I'm like, where did this come from? So the film was meant to be strictly a fishing
Yeah.
film, and like so many strictly fishing experiences or strictly fishing art or media, it's never just strictly about
Yeah.
fishing. There's
Yeah.
some sort of deeper story there, and turns out to be, what I felt like was a really great discovery of true American history, of my own family's history, and then that my story was not unique. That so many
Mm.
other Japanese American kids like me experience the same kind of results of assimilation in their families, and
Yeah.
it addresses that
Yeah.
as well as fishing.
Yes, it
Um,
does. It
it
does.
I and in the film, if people haven't seen it, I encourage them to count how many fish I caught.
Hillary is being funny and humble. Oh, I love that scene. Oh, I don't wanna give any of away. It's so
Right,
good. Everybody listening, definitely, definitely, definitely run out, download that, go to YouTube, get on your phone. Even if you're going potty, it's okay. We'll allow it.
right.
But if you're not, and you can watch Hilary's websites and her Instagram account and so on and so forth. That's how myself and my community were made aware. You just watch for the post and get out there and see it. So thank you, Hilary, for making that film. Even in my own lens, my own experiences of ancestral trauma, grief, shame, lots of things, another podcast. But there were so many trigger moments that touched me.
Mm.
And that really, really moved me and made me think. So thank you so much. It's such a
Well, thank
beautiful,
you.
beautiful work of art. So I could talk to you all night long, like, I mean, for real. But I know you've worked all day. You've been on the river. You were so kind to give me this evening taping here in the studio. But I do close every episode with a final question.
Okay.
And that is, Hillary, if you had to choose one superpower
Mm.
that you bring to your community, your environment, your family, your world. You're going to bring it to your clients tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. What would that superpower be?
So, this is gonna be so lame because this isn't a superpower. This is just an innate talent that I don't have. I I have musicians in my family, and I just the same way I missed the science gene, I also missed the musical gene. But I am so drawn to the storytelling of music. I love music. I love all kinds of
Mm.
music. I love absorbing the sounds and the words that I can't tell like that
Yeah,
through
yeah.
music, through playing music or singing. I don't sing, I don't play music, I can't, I've tried. And, and I feel like that's a superpower when people can sing and, like, kind of bring the world together through music, and the way that I feel like, certain music has changed me, whether it's just,
Mm.
like, I'll even go to my parents' church and listen to my mom play chimes, and I'm, like,
Mm.
moved,
Right.
Yeah, and so
I love
so
that.
I really am impressed by music and musicians, and I feel like that's an actual superpower. Like, sometimes when I was a kid, I would wish that a spider would bite me and I would wake up, be able to sing or something. I don't know why
Mm.
it had to be a spider. I wouldn't wake up like Spider Woman. But, something would happen to me that suddenly that would be a superpower.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah,
Well,
so I wish I could sing.
I w-
I wish I could play music.
okay, so without sounding overly existential, this last hour, I would say you are this tapestry and this orchestration of so many things that have so many beats and pulses. Your
Mm.
activism work, your artistry and your filmmaking, your ability to facilitate and report and create data and bring these experiences together like you're going to do for your group tomorrow. I would say you I would say
Musical?
I would say
Okay.
you create some music. It's just in a different
Oh.
vibration, but that's just my 2 cents. What do I know?
I I appreciate that a lot, because I didn't have, my answer to the superpower is very true. That's how I feel, but it wasn't like, something that is super brave and strong, and it's just
I love the
I just
answer.
want to dance. I
I
just want
love
to
the answer. I would clear out a house if I sang, and I can't play instruments either. So there is something we have in common. I too love music.
And two, it can be just that simple. Like, it with the Colbert questionnaire, one of the things is like, how do you describe yourself in 5 words
Yeah.
or whatever? And I asked that to my brother-in-law, and he said, "I just want to dance."
I love that.
you know, and so
Yeah.
yeah, and so sometimes it's like, "Ah, yeah, that's it.
That's it.
That's all I want.
That's
I just want to get out there."
that is a vibe and a feeling, and I can't wait to see you in a couple weeks to do that with you.
Same. Yes. Same. We're gonna
We are
dance.
gonna dance. Well, Hilary, this has been incredible. I want to keep my promise of right about an hour because I know you've got a lot going on and you've got to get some Z's for the river tomorrow. But this has just been a delight. Everybody listening, check out all of Hilary's information will be in our liner notes, but check out her IG, her website, her film. Go to Larry's Fly Fishing Shop. We didn't even get to that. That's an amazing shop that she owns in Montana. And I just cannot thank you enough, Hilary, for sharing your evening with
Oh,
us. It was a
thank you. It was
blast.
super fun.
Yeah.
There's no place I'd rather be. This is a blast. It was
Oh.
great to see you and talk to you, and I can't wait to see you in person.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. Great
You bet.
episode.
See you.
Thanks so much for joining me for this episode. If you enjoyed it, I hope you'll make it easy for others to enjoy it too. You can do that by subscribing, writing a review, and sharing episode links with others. Then you'll be my superhero.